No, I've been involved in ministry with small churches. I preached in larger churches. I preached in all different kinds of college campuses, on the streets. I've done all. I would preach anywhere, soup kitchens, wherever God opened the door, I'd preach. I didn't care where it was. I never turned down an opportunity. I remember once I was preaching a revival at a French church, and we were having great success. And some other pastors were coming from other churches, and we were having a really good meeting. And God spoke to me to go to this little small church, about 100, maybe about 70, 60, 70 miles away, I guess. And it just was a spur of the moment thing. The guy called me up on a Sunday and said, "Hey, would you be willing to come tonight and preach?" And I said, I thought about it, I prayed about it, and I told the pastor friend that I was holding a revival. I said, "Would it be all right with you if I go to this other church tonight? They've asked me to come." He goes, "Oh yeah, sure." He goes, "I totally understand." So I called him back. I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And I mean, it didn't make any sense to me in the natural realm, you know. But I said, "Okay," and I went, and there was a small church. I mean, like 6, 7 people maybe that night, and they had an organist that was probably as old as Sir Graves Ghastly. Okay, now I'm dating myself. I know you've never heard of Sir Graves Ghastly, right? Google him. Google him just for fun. Sir Graves Ghastly. Back in the day, in the 70s, 1970s, in the afternoon, they always had, like, I guess you would call it horror shows, like horror genre. And Sir Graves was like the narrator, the host. He was just, he looked like, somebody that, he's always green makeup, real old looking suits, like he was a funeral director, that kind of a guy. He'd play an organ. Well, that was about how the organist looked in that church that night. No joke. uh, and they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'll come." And I'm like, so we get there. It's a small little town, very small, but they had a college that was like in the town. They had a college, which was kind of amazing. And so we were like, hmm, interesting. So we had that night. So I'm like, I was going to preach on something. Had something I was going to preach on. About the middle of the worship service, I don't know how many it was. It might have been anywhere from 6 to 10 students came in to the service from the college, and it was probably the first young people they'd seen in that church in years, except for maybe if there were little children. I don't even think they're all those little children had grown up and they had kids and now they were grandparents. That was an old church. These young people came in, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So when I got up to preach, the Lord changed my whole thing. He said, "I want you to share your testimony." But my testimony was still pretty fresh. I mean, it's probably, I got saved in '84. This was probably 90, 91. I was only, been saved a few years. So I was always sharing my testimony because I had a remarkable conversion. And so I started sharing my testimony, and I talked about, especially about the baptism of the Holy Spirit, how God could fill us with power and give us a prayer language. And I don't know why, but that was the emphasis of what God was telling me. And so I'm preaching it, and everything like that. I get down to the end of the service, and I had play like some really kind of slow worship music, and I gave the altar call, and I said, if anybody here, you heard the message and you want to accept Jesus, I want you to come up. Before I got done saying it, they all six just came up to the altar, started pouring their hearts out to God. And I mean, I don't know if they were saved already or what, but they started coming to the altar like they were getting saved. I didn't do a formal altar call because it was the Holy Spirit was doing the altar call. And they ended up praying in tongues and lifting their hands. I didn't tell them to do it. They just did it on their own. Some of them were crying. Some of them were just laughing. The Holy Spirit moving on them. It was awesome. Had I not gone that night, that never would have happened. But God knew. And so the great thing was that church had not seen anything like that in years. And that was happening all the time in these little small towns. That's why I have such a heart for these little churches. What happened is these mega churches started growing up and just overshadowed all these little churches, and they could no longer compete or even have any not that there's a competition, but they couldn't exist anymore, so they were closing their doors left and right, these little churches. I don't believe that was God's will. I don't, because I saw firsthand what God was doing. And so that little church had that little starting of a revival. And I remember the pastor, because it was the pastor of the church that I was working with. He had that was his father's church. So it was very special to him because, he wanted his dad to have success. And that's how old this guy was. This guy was probably I was like maybe 20. How old was I? 22, 23 at the time. This guy was like 70, 80. I mean, it's a big age difference. And then Pastor Spear, the guy I was pastoring with, he's the one that died of cancer while I was there ministering with him. He he was probably in his 40s, maybe mid 40s at the time, and he was the first one that gave me a chance. That said, "Hey, I believe in what God's doing in your life and your vision." He said, "We want to hire you as an evangelist. We want you to be able to travel whenever you want. If you have a meeting somewhere, we're not going to stand in your way, but we want you to come and work during the week. And I want you to train some people to go out with you into the community and witness and share your faith," because he knew that's what I was doing and that's what I was doing. So it was just incredible. I was able to go out and minister and have, we were seeing revival. God was moving and all this stuff. And and then I remember we went back to that church and we did like a revival because we wanted to tap into the college. And there was it was fascinating because the one thing I remember about it is they had this restaurant where they had the best barbecue. To this day, I still remember how good that barbecue was. It was really good, and that was in the middle of that town. They had some good barbecue. I mean, it was good. But we'd seen a lot of good things, and so my heart is for these smaller churches. You know, I've always had a heart for that. I mean, we started getting out as we ministered and did different things. We started seeing more of a the larger churches started coming around, and they were like, hey, would you come and share your testimony or whatever?" And I would. And then I think as God was moving, there was a lot of things, but it was like I was very young, so I wasn't seasoned enough to really understand everything that God was doing at that time. I mean, if it was happening now, I would have had a much better understanding. But you can't fast forward yourself, you know, 20 years into the future unless you're Michael J. Fox or Back to the Future, right? But yeah, so I want to help. That's what I want to do, and I'm believing God with all the experience I have and the years of experience. I might be able to help some of these younger guys with their ministries and help me. Maybe like I said, give them a platform using all the experience I have. I've been doing this for over 10 years. I got a lot of experience in this, whether whether it's good. Most of it's good. I mean, but I think the church is really, even though the internet's been around a long time, even though, you know, it wasn't until what COVID that churches really started coming online and doing videos. It took COVID to bring people, and they weren't able to go to church anymore because they closed them down. Remember? So everybody was coming online. We were already online. We were already doing it. It's unfortunate though that we weren't able to really harness that and get more people ourselves. It actually reversed itself on us. There's a lot of the people that were already coming into our ministry that were online decided after COVID that they wanted to be in person church, which I understand that you want to be in an actual physical church, and so people got bored with Zoom. They got tired of that, and it kind of, I think, had an adverse effect on us. I think we lost people instead of gaining people, which is kind of weird because you would have thought because we were already doing it, we were kind of already well schooled in how to do it, that people would have come and said, "Oh, can we come to your service or whatever?" But that didn't happen, and that's okay. I'm just saying it, and I think now people are starting to come back around again to online. But a lot of churches have notoriously been the farthest behind when it comes to technology. I think there's churches that are probably still using fax machines. It would surprise me a bit. I remember this one guy when I was going to do this a few years ago, and I started going out. But at that time, the Lord told me not to. He said, "No, I don't want you to do this yet. This isn't the time." And he kind of stopped me, and I quit doing it. But I was going around and I was trying to do like build websites, help churches, and all this with technology. And so I went to this church, and the pastor came to the door, and he was all panicked and everything. He goes, "Oh," he goes, "We got we got hacked, and we're being held for ransom by somebody." know this guy from Adam. I walk up to the church and I introduced myself and told him, what I was there for. And he's like, oh, he goes, well, we can't do anything because they got us, and we gotta give them money, and they're holding all of our data, and I'm like, have you tried antivirus? He's like, oh, we tried everything. We got people working on it, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, all right, well, and sometimes I would sit down with a guy and I would be telling him what I'm trying to do, and it's like you could tell they're not getting it. And I'm like, would you have somebody in your church that helps you with your website? And then their websites were, I mean, hello, 1990s called. They want their website back. I mean, these websites were horrible. Like, I swear, it's like somebody literally took a program from like where they actually, instead of using like a modern website builder, like there's a million of them out there where you could build one, a template. They actually like had somebody code it from like old 1990s code. It literally, these websites look like something that early 2000s. I'm like, how long have you had this website? And then they went and have like the links wouldn't work, and I'm like, I'm like, I could actually build you a website that worked. And now, lately, I've been looking at some of these churches' websites, and they actually, some of them are pretty good, I'd have to say. But I mean, nowadays, anybody can build a website. It's you just go to Wix or whatever and you add whatever you want. But that's still churches. God bless them. There's so many of them out there that they are way behind. They're not, but most churches, even big mega churches, don't really know how to use the internet for social media, and they're way behind on that. Even though they might have a lot of people, um, I would venture to say 90% of churches don't really fully understand unless they're on using TikTok or something or whatever. Most churches don't even really know how to use anything. They're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall, hoping it sticks. But it's interesting to me. I don't really have ambition to help them with it, but I would help a church build a website if they had a really terrible one. And I would say most of your smaller churches that don't have, especially if it's an older church with older people, unless there's some young person in there that's doing it, they don't have anybody to help them. I would help them for free. I'm not looking to get rich. Can't do everything for free. I mean, I gotta, if I'm gonna do this and launch out, I gotta, you know, get something out of it too. So, but I mean, my goal would be to get them on the network where they could actually, once they're on our network, we could help them with everything. And then if they wanted to have us create events and stuff, we could do it for a monthly fee or whatever. I'm not going to do it for free. It's a lot of work, but I could help them. And but hey, if it works out and it's growing and there's a need for me to hire a couple of people. I mean, I know Caleb, you're already in the biz. You're already doing uh, this stuff. Probably wouldn't have any desire in that, but you know, if you guys wanted to come on and just, you know, who knows if the network grows and there's Christians on there, and by all means, we could start chatting and bring that over to Discord as well. So there's still a lot of room for crossing over and bringing people into Jesus Connect from it. Actually, Jesus Connect is I had to create a group as a model because this is all new. I don't have any. anybody on there yet, except for people that I've dummy accounts and stuff that I've created. But so I created a model group, and it's just that there's so many different ways that you can share in a group. I mean, there's not a whole lot of software out there that allows you to have a group with blogs and forums inside of. I mean, yeah, a website would have that, like a social network, like Facebook would have that ability, even Discord. But to have your own group that's your own URL that people can actually, you could give it to everybody in your church and say, come and join our group. I mean, who wouldn't want that? What church wouldn't want that? What pastor wouldn't want to have a place that he can share his? That's another thing: video galleries, photo galleries, everything that churches want to have. In, invites, um, instant messaging. So if you instant message somebody, the only thing it doesn't have, which is kind of, I don't know that it's necessarily a deal breaker. If you sign up, you have to sign up with your email. So you would get email notifications. But if somebody messages you, um, you pull up, it doesn't have a mobile app, but you pull it up through Chrome, you would get notified. Like, so it will notify you, like through your email, that somebody messaged you or whatever. But you can't have everything. I mean, I would love it to have notifications and all of that. And maybe down the road, if I decide that this is something that's really great, people are using it, they're whatever. You can add things to it, so there is a way to add notifications to it. I just thought about that. Yeah, I know how to do that actually. There's a program that you can run. It just you put it right into the HTML and it creates a subscription where they subscribe to notifications and they get it. But anyway, so a church could have their videos, their sermons, events on a network that they can either have it public, and if it's public, other Christians, other churches could join your church is event because everybody sees it. Everything that has a timeline like Facebook, so everything gets posted every time somebody posts a video, a picture, a group event. It timelines to it because it's a social network. You join it, you become friends with people. I mean, it's this huge. It becomes a huge citywide network for churches. That's the beauty of it. I guarantee you won't find anything like this. I dare you to try to find anything like this. I challenge you to. You won't find anything like this. I mean, because people use Facebook for this or Instagram, but it's not working. It's not working because number one, you're still only going to reach the people within your little circle, unless you got a way to branch out of that circle, and that's what Faith Connect is. It branches them outside of their circle and allows them to have a way to get their content out there to different people. But it's interesting because if word of mouth, in a city, word of mouth can spread, and so people can find out about it and then go, "Oh, there's this new network thing," and so and so joins it, another person joins it. Now you've got all these Christian individuals joining it, and they can join. It's like say there's 20 churches on there that have a group. They could join all 20 of those groups. They could be in every one of them. So, or they could be in one of them or two of them or whatever. So it's kind of a cool idea, and hopefully it works. If it does, then I'll feel like I would have left something a legacy of some sorts for people to say that, hey, I joined that network, our church grew, our church was able to, grow or have more people. And that's the key. If their church grows and they get people coming and get saved, just think of that. That could multiply all over the city. So that's what we're hoping for. Anyway. Anyway, it's 10 o'clock. 10:10 already? Man, where does time go? Ah, you've been pretty good. Once I gave you some stuff to do, buddy. Well, anyway, um, let's try to get together tomorrow night. We'll do a Bible study or something, and then we'll go from there, huh? All right. Well, then we'll talk to you guys. Tomorrow's only Thursday. I hate to inform you it's only Thursday tomorrow. But Friday will be here soon enough, buddy. All right. God bless you guys. We'll see you.